What is up, L's and G's? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I've got another discussion video for you. This time I want to talk about the new sexy spicy reptile card, Cosmic Pinsir Zalor. This is a really cool card. It reminds me of some things we've kind of seen as far as engines go, as far as just like wind conditions go that we've seen over the last couple of years, and have actually performed pretty well. So I do think there is a potential for this card, especially with some other things we'll talk about surrounding this card, that might actually give it a chance to be a legit win condition in a winning strategy competitively. So yeah, I guess we might as well start off by just going over what this card does. It's a Link 3. It takes any 2 reptile monsters, so fairly generic, but it is still locked to reptiles. It says change all your opponent's monsters that have A counters to defense position. Also, they cannot activate their effects. That's very important because that's just continuous. It's not activated, can't be negated on activation or anything, so that's really good. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn from this card. If it's Link Summon, you can add any card from your deck to the hand that has an effect that places an A counter. Also really cool. And the last effect says you can remove 2 A counters from anywhere on the field to immediately after this effect resolves normal summon 1 reptile monster. So kind of a lot going on, but the main things here is continuous effect. Any monster your opponent has with an A counter, 2 defense mode, and no effects. On Link Summon, it can add any card that gives an effect to place A counters anywhere on the field. And the last effect, you can remove any 2 A counters from anything, your monsters, your opponent's monsters, whatever, and get an additional normal summon for a reptile. So it's an extender, it's a searcher for cards, and it's a win condition of itself, turning off your opponent's monsters. Very good in pretty much all facets. Like, the only thing that could have made this potentially better is if it was a Link 2 instead of a Link 3, but that might be a little bit too busted, right? So here, the main thing this reminds me of, I guess the best segue here is Buster Blader, right? We've seen Buster Blader as a little engine go out and just, you know what I mean, set up the Buster Lock, which is very similar. So essentially the Buster Lock is you end on the Buster Blader Fusion Monster and Buster Dragon, the Synchro. The Synchro changes all monsters your opponent controls to dragons, and Buster Blader Fusion says all dragons your opponent controls, are changed to defense mode and can't activate their effects. It's like the same exact thing as Zalor here, just specific to dragons. And so the win condition is there because we've seen Buster Blader. Now, maybe we haven't seen it be a legit tier 1 meta strategy, but it's been at least tier 2. Like, keep your eye on it, because if you run into it, it can be a problem. And, you know, it's been there for a while. This deck has been able to compete for a minute. So really strong, and I think this card just reminds me so much of that. So we're going to be going into a little bit more with this card because it's really spicy, and there's a lot of other things you need to consider. Because the best card this card works with is Planet Pollutant Virus. This is normally the card you're going to be wanting to search off of his effect because it does place A counters, and it's a trap that says tribute any alien monster, then destroy all face-up monsters without A counters your opponent controls, and then until the end of your opponent's 3rd turn after this card's activation, you put an A counter on every monster they summon. So I believe that's just on summon, they immediately get an A counter, and that means they immediately get switched to defense mode and negated. Pretty good, right? So this card's really strong. The only possible problem you could have with this card is this text right here. This card has to tribute an alien monster first to resolve the rest of it, what it wants to do. And that's kind of a problem because this guy is not an alien, and you obviously want him up anyway. So the idea is you need to end on him plus an alien, and he searches this by himself, so that's not the biggest deal. But it's insanely strong. I mean, it's literally just like needle sealing, but only for your opponent's stuff. And then from then on, it places A counters on everything for 3 whole turns, which is just so good, right? Yeah. So that's the main deal there. You're going to set that. This is another card that's really interesting, Alien Buster. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target any monster on the field and place 2 A counters on it. Also, during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to grave, you can banish it to target a card with an A counter and destroy it. So you could potentially send this on your opponent's turn with the alien quick play spell that I believe says like Foolish Burial an alien from deck to grave, then put A counters on a monster, I think. And then that would trigger him to also put 8 counters on him, and that's searchable. So even if you didn't have the full combo where you could end with him and an alien to trigger this with, you could actually just search the quick play spell. Then you could set the quick play spell on your opponent's turn, send Buster, and then Buster would trigger, giving some counters, putting counters on multiple monsters, and then they're going to be negated. If your opponent isn't able to link them off, get them off the field, whatever, then next turn you're just going to be able to banish Buster to just pop that card. And depending on if you wanted to put his counters on like Zalor, you could use him for an additional normal summon next turn as well. Now this is all more relevant for like more pure alien builds, of course. But we can't discount the fact that we're getting a new reptile deck that actually has some legitimate potential fairly soon, and that's Abyss. We're going to get them, we're either getting them June or July, I can't remember off the top of my head when the TCG is going to get them. But that's all reptile deck. It spams the board fairly decently, and this card's only in Link 2, or Link 3, I mean. And yeah, so one of the problems you might have said is, like, if you're using this generically as an engine, how are you putting an alien monster on next to him? And there's a ton of responses to that. You could play generic cards, Monster Reborn, World Legacy Succession, Viper's Rebirth. If you're playing a very pure reptile variant, it does say you have to have only reptiles engraved, but if you're playing a very pure variant, Viper's Rebirth. So you just play Reborn spells, Fossil, even Living Fossil, as long as you used an alien monster as part of like your combo, that works too. There's so many different ways you can make it work, right? But the simplest thing is to remember this. Aliens already have a Link 2 monster with alien in the name. So if you're going to make him with 2 reptiles, it makes sense to just go up into him first, and then use him and another reptile to make this, which means any other Reborn effect just gets him on the field, and then you have your alien tribute for your Pollutant Virus. Because ideally you want to be getting to this, because this is just insane. You're going to wipe your opponent's board, and then every other thing they summon after that is negated pretty much for like 3 whole cycles of turns, and that's just so strong. So I really think there's like an opening here. I'm not exactly sure how good it's actually going to be, and maybe the best thing this just ends up being is kind of validating aliens a little bit as like actually giving them a win condition, because I'm not sure this card has any 1-card plays, and that's one of the differences with like the Buster engine is like they have Buster Whelp, who is just, no, not Buster Whelp, the normal summon, Dragon Buster, no, I can't remember his name. Whatever the normal summon's name is, that's 1-card combo. You search the trap and he puts himself engraved, because Buster Blades literally just need the trap plus any dragon engraved, and they can do the full setup, right? This deck needs a way to Zalor, which there may be 1-card ways to Zalor. There just may not be 1-card ways to Zalor plus an alien monster on field, because that's really what we're looking for. So gotta just keep that in mind. I don't think it's overly crazy or anything to think, but I mean, what if Alien becomes a rogue deck because of this? Maybe I'm crazy, but like, I don't know. Buster Bladers weren't even really an archetype. At least this deck has some extenders. You have like Alien Dog. Alien Kid, by the way, is just like a card that essentially does what Pollutant Virus does. And I think he just says while he's on the field, any monster your opponent summons gets an A counter. So again, just have him up with this. You may not even need Pollutant Virus to like wipe the board, and your opponent may not be able to play. Some decks just can't play through Skill Drain, depending on like the way their deck functions, right? And you can scoop up wins that way. So there's a lot going on. I think this guy's also really, really nice for the strategy. I think he just does so many things. It's just when he's generically sent to grave, he puts A counters, which is what they needed, because they had multiple cards that were like destroyed by battle, put an A counter on the field or whatever, and that's just not going to cut it. Plus he gives the added removal on as follow-up later on in turns, which is really cool. So I'm actually really excited to try and build some pure alien variants. I'm excited to build some Abyss alien variants. I might be excited to try and play a generic deck that just tries to go into like what's that one card? Is it Riprodocus? I can't remember the name of it. It's the Link 2 that's like a dinosaur, but he can just change his type to any type in the game. Make himself a reptile, go into this guy, search a card, and then, I don't know, you might need a way to get to an alien still, but that still opens up the door for some generic potential there, because he just takes any 2 reptiles. So I'm definitely going to be looking into that. I'm definitely going to be looking to try and make Alien Rogue. I just think this guy's awesome. I guess another thing to mention is that if you're playing ways to get like Alien Shock Trooper back onto the field next to him, then I think the only real main deck card you need to play is Virus, which almost makes it feel like the Shaddoll engine, right? Or the Shaddoll engine in like Dogmatica Invoked and stuff, they just play Schism most of the time in the main. And the whole goal is just you send the cards with your engine that from your extra deck to trigger, you search the Schism, and Schism handles the rest from there because you've already got the materials sitting in grave. So again, really cool. May only take one card in the main deck if you're playing a deck that just plays this as a mini engine, but there might be some other pieces you need to have just because. But obviously we'll have to just, you know, keep an eye on that. Just see if there's like generic ways to make this work. I really think this could be like an insane engine. Maybe it'll just be an insane engine for reptiles, like I said. Maybe it'll be an insane engine for other decks. I don't know for sure, but of course we'll see eventually. So that's going to be it. I kind of just wanted to talk about this because I gave like a quick review when this card came out, but I didn't really go any more in depth on it. I really think this card has huge potential. This is one of like the 3 cards in this set so far that I actually think is like a good card that's going to help push the set potentially. The other cards are just like whatever. So yeah. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm gonna leave it off there. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this card. Do you think I'm like overselling this card? Do you think like aliens are trash without this card, trash with this card? Do you think maybe they are an interesting little rogue deck now that like you go second and they drop this card on you, you can be in some trouble? Or maybe it's just like an Abyss thing. Maybe this card is more like Abyss support than anything else because aliens are too far gone to really make it happen. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts on it, though, in the comment section down below. Other than that, I'm going to get the hell out of here. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Get the hell out of here. Peace.